Hey, welcome back to the All Trades Jack channel. I'm Reaction Jackson, and tonight we're talking about Doctor Who, Season 2, Episode 6, the Interstellar Song Contest. I've been looking forward to this episode, and while it was a very good episode and I liked it a lot, there was a lot of things that I was hoping to see that I didn't get to see. But this is the relationship with watching Doctor Who, is you get your expectations set to one place. Sometimes they don't get met, but sometimes you get something else that you didn't expect. So that's kind of what we're getting tonight, and I'm going to unpack that. But first, let's set the scene. This whole episode takes place on the space station Harmony Arena. And right away, this place looks fabulous. The outside of it looks great. It looks unique. It doesn't look too much like anything else. It doesn't look like other space stations we've seen. It looks very distinct with these like jagged edges and these like trapezoidal panels reaching up into tiers. Like it looks like a crown almost, or it looks like I don't know. It looks very spacey wacy, and then it has the big bubble over the top of it, which will be important throughout the story. It looks gorgeous, and the inside it looks stunning as well. The actual arena place, it kind of looks to me like the Galactic Senate in Star Wars, because it has all these round seating areas that go up in like not terraces, but like up in tiers. By the way, normally I do these at 4 a.m. because I watch these as soon as they drop, and then I record my reactions. But I was out of town this week, so I get to record this at a somewhat normal time. It's still early in the morning / late at night, but I'm still exhausted, even so it being a couple of hours early. Because I just got back from my trip. I literally drove 12 hours today, and the first thing I did was I pet my cat because I missed him so much, and then I sat down and I watched Doctor Who, and now I'm doing this. So even though I'm doing it earlier in the day than normal, I'm still exhausted, and I'm going to say goofy brain stuff, so please forgive that. But aside from the actual architecture and what the place looks like, we get a look at the crowd, and we see a lot of different aliens running about. I'm not so sure that a lot of them were aliens we knew. A couple of the species that we see get named when their singers get named. We see some of the species, and I think there was one that kind of looked like a sea devil. I don't know if I was just like wanting to see that, but one of them kind of looked like a sea devil. But I don't know. I'll have to look at those frames again with a little bit more scrutiny and try to pick out what kind of aliens are in the crowd, because I probably missed a few Easter eggs. But I don't know. I was way too zonked on the first viewing to be able to catch all the little details like that. Mostly going to be reacting to the story and not stuff like that. We get to see a lot of the behind the scenes of the song contest and how it's operating, and that's really cool because it becomes important, since the control room being taken over is what kicks off the action of the story. But it was cool to see it ahead of time, to see Rylan communicating back and forth with them, and seeing that like the way that they would normally operate, so we can see when things begin to fall apart, and it helps to build up that tension, being able to see how things should be operating. Also on a note, Rylan playing himself, that's great. There's going to be a lot of ties from this episode to the Satellite 5 game station episodes throughout. We're going to have to talk about the connections. So one of them is this idea of show hosts having an identity that outlives them, like the android. Or Rylan becoming an immortal who's permanently in cryo sleep so he can come host the song contest. There will be others throughout the episode, but those come up right away. But on the note of Rylan and the back and forth with him and the producers, there was a line that I cannot let slide, because one of the producers says, like, give me some awe. And he goes, aw. And then she spells it out, AWE. And I'm sorry, but I heard this joke in George of the Jungle when I was like a little kid.
They reacted with awe. I said awe. AWE. That's better.
So you're not going to slide that one past me. You can't just steal the joke from the Brendan Fraser movie from the 90s and think we're not going to notice. I liked the foreshadowing of the poppy honey, the advertisements throughout. I should mention, I totally missed last week that the baby in the alleyway was Poppy, or she was a space baby anyway. I'm pretty sure it was Poppy, But I think the credits just named her as Space Baby. But if it is Poppy, that's interesting that the very next episode has poppies in it. That's a, I don't know. It's just interesting. I don't think that actually means anything. But I thought that was interesting, especially because it comes important throughout the story. On the note of the poppies, obviously those are Hellions poppies. That's what kicks off the motivation for the bad guys to be doing what their thing is, because their planet was taken for these poppies. But yeah, I like that they foreshadowed everything with the poppies in the advertising, the poppy honey in the advertising. We didn't know the connection yet, but at the same time we're seeing those ads, we're getting our first glimpses at the Hellions, the one who's working in the control room, and then eventually Kid, who takes over the control room. And I like that that we set that up. He takes over the drones to launch phase 1, and I thought the drones kind of looked like Nova Corps from Marvel Comics, just with the three cross thing across their helmet. I thought that's what they looked like. They were pretty weak, the drones. They weren't really a threat. They weren't really a bad guy, and I don't think that they're going to be very memorable, a very memorable part of this episode even. But I thought their design was cool for what it was worth. But yeah, the Hellions and their planet being taken and by this shadow entity, this corporation, I think that was an interesting bit of motivation for them. And I like that they foreshadowed it in the story. But I do have to address this corporation thing because I made a joke a couple of weeks ago now when Lucky Day there was Think Tank, and I was like, how unoriginal are you going to be that your think tank is called Think Tank? And I complained about this. It's like, there's like in shows, like when corporations are called the corporation, and I referenced back to Prison Break. And sure enough, in this same season, there's a corporation called the corporation. Gosh, we're trying so hard. But anyway, I'm not going to bust their chops about it too much. Although I do think it's funny that I just said this the other day. But anyway, the Hellions want to overthrow the corporation. It all makes perfect sense. Kid kicks off his plan and opens up the bubble, and he goes pop. And oh my goodness, the effect on this was so cool. I loved the effect on it. I loved the way it looked. I loved the sound. I loved the setup. When the bodies started floating up, I liked the way it had like an effect where it radiated out from the center and it kind of tapered up, where there was like the ones in the center who started coming up right away. And then it was like almost like a conical spread from there as it got more and more people and eventually grabbed the doctor. I thought that was really cool. I loved the wide angle shot of the outside where you could see the open canopy and the bodies just floating out into space. I thought that looked really good. And yeah, even just the bodies floating in space and the doctor slowly freezing, that was all super cool. I thought that looked brilliant. I wasn't expecting it. It was such a good turn. And, you know, even though the doctor gets out of it relatively easily, I like that he becomes separated from his companion, and they both feel the stakes, but they both think that the other one is dead or possibly dead or in danger at the very least, and incapacitated. So it works. It does a lot for the episode. To separate them in that way. It's better than the way they were separated in the last episode where Belinda was just in the TARDIS for like the first half of the episode, just chilling. This actually, this kind of separation is the kind that really works because we can see them like playing off of each other even when they're not together, the way that they're both kind of like chasing the same leads and doing the same kind of stuff, but in different ways and with different people. On the note of those different people, I liked the couple, Gary and Mike. And they were really cool that they were like the chance survival. The only reason they survived is because they weren't in their room. And the only reason they weren't in their room is because the doctor and Belinda were in their room. So it was a kind of a chance survival thing. They shouldn't really have survived, but they did. And they ended up being super helpful. They ended up being very important to the resolution. So that was one group of them. And the other one was Cora, and I think it was her manager. And Cora is the secret Hellion, the code switching Hellion. I saw this coming from a mile away, that Cora was going to be a Hellion, like as soon as she started talking about them, and then especially when she got defensive. I thought she was going to have full-blown hair, just because the shape of her hair could have perfectly covered some horns up. But yeah, the fact that her horns were cut off was also, like, I wasn't expecting that necessarily, but I did expect that she was going to be a Hellion. Now, as far as what the Hellion plan actually is, this is the other connection to Satellite 5 we have to talk about, is the Delta Wave. The Delta Wave is what the Ninth Doctor was going to use to kill the Daleks, but he couldn't discriminate in time. He couldn't make a refined version of it that could discriminate between humans and Daleks, and it was going to kill everyone. That's why he sends Rose back to the present day. Well, the present day, relatively speaking. Was to save her from the Delta Wave. Of course, he doesn't end up using it, but it's interesting because he was going to use the transmitter of Satellite 5, a TV station. He was going to use the broadcast waves of the TV station to make a weapon. And that's exactly what Kid is doing, because it's just a different broadcast signal. It's, it's this song contest, and it's the same exact method. And I think it's funny just how righteously angry the Doctor gets about this when he was ready to do this move. Now, of course, he was ready to do this move to kill the Daleks, his sworn enemies. The Kid was ready to do this to like make the companies or the corporations' reputation bad and kill trillions of innocent people. So he does have the moral high ground, but at the same time, using a delta wave through a TV network or TV broadcast signal is something the Doctor would absolutely do. Well, I guess he wouldn't do it because Eccleston didn't throw the switch. But it was something he definitely contemplated. Also, I think it's interesting that the delta wave looks like a little cube with red lights, because that also makes me think of The Moment, which was a big cube with a big red shiny button that you would press to end everything. And these are all the same question: is will you do this? The Satellite 5 thing was a smaller scale version of the Time War, and the Time War was a much larger scale version of this 3 trillion live thing. But they're all essentially the same thing: is I have button that will kill everybody. And it makes sense why the Doctor is feeling morally righteous, but wow, his anger in this scene is something else, isn't it? I'm liking the range from Ncuti this season, that we're seeing more sides of him. This was devious. That hologram shadow clone attack that he did, that was devious. And I'm kind of surprised that Belinda forgave him, not forgave him, but embraced him as quick as she did. Because this scene was playing a lot like some other scenes we've seen before, like the Time Lord Victorious scene or the Dalek scene, from the episode Dalek, where he points the gun at the Dalek and Rose stands in the way. I'm reminded of these kinds of scenes and the tension that they created and the shame that the Doctor felt, and the opportunities it created for other conversations and other development of characters and relationships. And I feel like we missed a trick with this one, because I don't feel like they really unpacked what happened. They try to double back to it at the end of the episode, but I think at that point it's too late. They've already hugged it out and solved the problem together and moved on with the story, and they're just kind of doing a wrap up at the end, well, we're glad we saved the day. That one bit was tricky though, wasn't it? It didn't feel the same as Rose saying to the Doctor, what the hell are you changing into? That was very direct. That was very impactful. It was a very meaningful character moment that you remember, and I feel like we missed a chance to have that in this episode. But I like that he went on this dark arc where we get to see him do a little bit of shady dealings, and Ncuti promised on the press tour that we were going to see a little bit of this side of him, and so I'm excited that this is how it's manifesting, and I wonder if we have more to come. I like that the glove which the Doctor uses to torture this guy is also the thing that he uses to save everybody. That idea that the weapon that pushed you too far could also be a means of redemption. Not dissimilar to The Moment. Again, there's a lot of callbacks to these kinds of stories that this modern era of Doctor Who has been good about telling. So I think those elements are really working. And I thought it was cool too, the effect of the hard light tractor beam thing pulling people in. I thought it all looked really good. I think it kind of started getting a little bit rushed and silly, especially as they were reviving lots and lots of people. Some of them were just throwing their arms up as soon as the pods burst open. And my only thought is like, the first couple of people who came out, especially those who were given speaking lines like Rylan, they're reacting to like, oh, where am I? How did I get here? Like, because they all thought they were dead. They revived in right at the last thing they remember before they were revived is being sucked into space. So it's weird that the thing opens and they're all together throwing their hands up in celebration. Multiple pods full of people all do that. It seems a little bit goofy that that's how that would play out. But other than those little hangups, I do think that the resolution to how they saved everybody was kind of neat. I like the way that they explained early on that, like, oh no, everyone's not dead. They're trapped in this thing. We might be able to save them. I like that they did that rather than the big revelation at the end that, like, oh, they're trapped in this bubble and maybe we can still save them, and like shoehorn it in. It was nice to know that, like, they are out there. They're basically dead. They could be saved. The time is ticking. So it felt a little bit less contrived when they get brought back later in the episode. It didn't feel as cheap because we had expectations. They communicated to us that it's like, yeah, we're going to give you this big, super cool looking scene of bodies being pulled out into space, but those people aren't all dead. And this was one of those like everybody lives episodes. So they let you know that right away that was going to be part of this. Like, okay, there's a chance that everybody could live. And they explained it with a little bit of a Mavity shell. And this is interesting. I noted the other day that we hadn't heard the word Mavity in this season. It took to episode 6 to get the word, and we got it several times, including variations on it, like Mavic. So, like, I don't know. There was a bunch of versions of gravity being floated around as Mavity this episode. So it's back. It's officially back. And I don't know. Maybe we'll resolve that in the next couple episodes, what that's all about. Now, the last thing I have to talk about is Korra and her song at the end. But before I can talk about Korra, let me double back and talk about the expectations I had for this episode. Because like I said, I loved a lot of this episode. I loved a lot of the effects. I loved a lot of the storytelling beats. I thought it was a really cool episode. I think it's one of my favorites of the season so far. But it didn't do what I was expecting it to do. Because it featured very little music. This is the second time they've had this kind of thing happen, whereas like they had an episode with the God of Music, and the God of Music showed up in the same time frame as the Beatles. And you would think, okay, though you're giving us a clear indication that there's going to be like a musical aspect to this episode. And it's kind of the same thing with the Interstellar Song Contest, where it's like, this is Eurovision. It is very clear that music is going to be a part of it. And it doesn't have to be a big part of it, but it should be a part of it. And most of the contestants' songs are going on in the background. We see like little blips of them, or they're on a screen, but it's mostly being played for comedy. And we don't get a lot of the vibe of what this contest is. My hope was that Belinda was going to sing. Because, we've seen the Doctor sing, we saw Ruby sing. I was hoping we'd see Belinda sing. Didn't happen. That's fine. But someone should sing. There should be like a signature song that I remember from this. This is the big song contest one. I should remember one of the songs. And the one that they expect you to remember is the one at the end, the big emotional beat at the end where Korra sings her song. Here's the problem. Right before she starts singing, she gives this exposition spiel where she tells you all the things the song is about, and all the relationships between her and the song, and all the relationships between the song and the corporation, and all the relationships between the corporation and her people and their people's planet. 90% of these things are things we as the audience already knew, and based off the reaction of the people in the audience to her saying she's a Hellion, most of them already knew it too. So I feel like we probably could have gotten away with just saying, this is a song from my home planet of Helios, or whatever it was. I think it was Helios. But either way, just say that line and have the crowd react the way they did. We get it. You don't have to say anything else. But they preload it with all this exposition that's really unnecessary, and then they proceed to sing a song in an alien language. Which means we have no relation to it. We can't relate to this song. And it's not like we haven't had some very memorable Doctor Who tracks that are just vocalizations, because there's some very great vocalizations in Doctor Who's music. Murray Gold knows what he's doing. Um, but since this was an international song contest, I just feel like it would have been great to have at least one track, the way we have the Goblin song, which we remember. You know, there's some memorable lines from the Goblin song. There's some memorable lines from Mr. Ring-a-Ding's little song. I feel like the music in this was so... It was just kind of a nothing burger. None of the songs really did anything. There was that weird little guy with the snoot noodle nose. I don't know what his deal was or what his name was. I didn't write it down, but he just said his name. He had like Pokemon syndrome. He was just saying his name over and over again, which he was cute, but he's not exactly a unique design, and he didn't exactly, you know, feel like he was real. He didn't feel like a real character or a real alien. He didn't look like he was in the same room as anyone else. So I don't know. I don't know if that one really worked for me. I really needed at least one song to work on an emotional level, because if you watch, I don't watch Eurovision, but I've watched plenty of, you know, song contests or talent contest shows, and it's all about, like, yeah, you relate to their stories. Sure, you know, you get the sob stories and you get to know who they are and what they're trying to do with, you know, like if they win or whatever, and you get all of that. But it's ultimately their performance and their songs that you connect with, and it would have been great to have a song that connect with. And so instead of doing like a line of like a bunch of lines of exposition and then singing this alien song while showing us images of a planet burning, a planet which shouldn't be burning, by the way, because this implies the corporation took the planet a long time ago. So it's not like there's like an active war zone there. I was confused about what they were showing us, unless it was just a flashback. I guess it could have been just a flashback. So we're being shown all these images and we're getting the music, and it sounds very dramatic. And again, we get these vocalizations, which Murray Gold is good at writing vocalizations, but I don't feel like it's as effective as if we would have gotten some kind of song that really got to what it means to be a member of a diaspora, you know, or to long for a home that you can never go back to, or what it's like to fight against a homogenous oppressor. You know, there's words you could have written into a song, even just a few lines that would really sell the message of the episode in a way that is like memorable. And like, I don't know, maybe that's just too much, you know, maybe that is just too much, but I feel like I would have liked to walk away from this episode about singers and their songs and remember one of the singers or their songs, you know. Now, at the end of the episode, they have the Vindicator back. Now, Doctor had said earlier in the episode the Vindicator had completed its final link. They were ready. Or that the Vindicator was charged and ready, and I guess Miss Flood said it was primed, and the last link had been completed. So we kind of knew that this was building up to something. We know that next week is May 24th, so this was a big deal. We all knew that this was gonna like kind of happen, and there was that moment where he puts the Vindicator in and goes to take off, and the TARDIS goes full, you know, red alert mode. And I love that scene. I love the tension of that scene. I love the lighting of that scene. And it really gave me flashbacks to Matt Smith era and the two parts of space and time that should never have touched, and the idea of landing in this place it shouldn't land, and the TARDIS blowing up, or something's blowing up. Something blew the doors off the TARDIS. So yeah, I was reminded of that basically right away. That was what I was thinking of, which we've talked about that before. It's not like I hadn't already had that revelation watching other episodes, but that came home in that last frame. Well, that last frame before the mid-credits sting, we finally get the identity of Mrs. Flood, and it turns out some people had it right from the beginning. I joked before about how anytime you have a mystery female character in Doctor Who, the two options that people say they are going to be Susan and the Ronnie. And it makes sense that this would be the episode where you revealed the Ronnie, because we revealed Susan. We see Susan throughout this episode, and so it only makes sense now to reveal, okay, Mrs. Flood is the Ronnie. But I mean, I didn't know that she was the Ronnie. I wouldn't have guessed that. I was betting against her being the Ronnie. And she's not just the Ronnie, but she bigenerates. Now, I don't mind the bi-generation because it proves something I've been saying is true, which is that Mrs. Flood doesn't matter. Mrs. Flood has never mattered. She was just an interesting connective tissue to like bring all the episodes together, make it feel more like a cohesive season since there wasn't that much time to develop a season arc. So Mrs. Flood helped to make it feel like something was happening. And now the Ronnie is here and Mrs. Flood is still around and yet not necessary. She's extra. She's a Ronnie, not the Ronnie, not the definitive article like the Meep or the Doctor. So yeah, she doesn't matter. She never and she never will. But I am excited to see the Ronnie. That's interesting. I actually mentioned the Ronnie when we were talking about all the things floating in space, because when the Earth is destroyed, you see all those things floating in space. It's weird, the things that are floating in space. It's like the pyramids and the Eiffel Tower, and like it's a bunch of landmarks. And the Ronnie's a bit of a collector. That's something she's done in the past, is create menageries and little collections for herself. And I don't know, it was interesting that those were the things that survived. And I wondered if, when we were talking about whether or not she was the Ronnie, that was one of the things that I mentioned. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if there actually is a connection to those things at the end of that episode, and if the Ronnie is making a new collection, maybe this time of Earth's finest tourist attractions. As for the actor who's playing the Ronnie, the definitive article or the definite article Ronnie is Archie Punjabi. I don't know this actor. I am not familiar with her work. I'm sure I've seen her in stuff, but I'm not familiar with her work off the top of my head. I think it'll be interesting to see how she does with it, because like I said, I don't have a frame of reference. But yeah, I'm excited to see a new version of the Ronnie, a modern Ronnie, and I'm interested to see how we get around the Time Lord genocide. How did Susan get out? How did the Ronnie get out? And what does this mean for the future? Also, why did the Ronnie bi-generate? Ketchum, I'm happy to see you too, but don't hit the mic, please. He's been missing me. He's just so excited to have me help. Ketchum, oh no, Ketchum, please. We didn't really talk much about Susan. She does appear throughout the episode, and she says multiple things to the Doctor, including telling him to stop whenever he's going all dark side. And she says, "Find me." So we're not sure where she is. And she's kind of an intrusive thought. He's not trying to think about her. In fact, at some points, he's actively trying not to think about her, and she comes back into his thoughts again. The one thing that she kept saying when she first showed up was "go back," and I wasn't sure what she meant by that. I'm thinking perhaps it's "go back to Gallifrey." Shudi's Doctor has not been to Gallifrey, to my knowledge. Jodie went to Gallifrey and saw that it was destroyed, took the Master at his word, and has moved on from that, and has gone back to calling himself the last of the Time Lords. So I think that she's saying "find me" and go back to Gallifrey, or maybe go back to where they last saw each other. I don't know. It could be that too. But that's the line I think that's important, because that was the one that cut through the noise, the first one he heard. The other ones seemed to be directly referencing what he was doing, like stop, don't keep attacking this guy. But the "go back" didn't seem to have a very clear meaning of why she was saying that, which is why it stuck out to me as being potentially important. All in all, this was a fun episode. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I personally had things on my wish list that I didn't get to see. But I did like this episode, and I think it added a lot to the season arc. I think it added a lot to the momentum of the season. I feel like we're going into the next episode in a really good place. I'm excited for the next episode. We're coming in hot. We've been building up to this reveal of the 24th all season, so it's exciting to finally be here and to see what's going to happen next. Like I think the whole fan base is going to be charged up to see the next episode. I think people are going to turn out in numbers for it. I really do. I think it's going to perform well. I wonder, I haven't seen the news. I haven't looked to see how how this one did, because there was a doubt about whether or not this one was going to make it onto TV. And I honestly, like I said, I've been out of town. My kid's sister graduated high school this weekend. So I was I drove to Oklahoma to go see her graduate. And I have not been keeping up with what's going on with the episode. So I don't know how people reacted to it. I don't know what people are saying about the reveal, and I also don't know how it played versus like the other things that were going on that night, and whether or not it got seen. It very well may have not even played. I have no idea. I'm living in a bubble. But I really thoroughly enjoyed it, despite it not having everything that I wanted. I'm not big on like holding the creators to my wish list. And there's always the chance Musical Watch 2025 is not over. Just because they didn't cash in those chips in the most obvious place, maybe that's just because they're holding out, right? I mean, to be fair, they weren't really using the visual language or the storytelling language of a musical, right? So it doesn't really matter that this episode didn't play like one. It was a TV show. We were seeing the control room. We were seeing the station. We were seeing that part of it because it was about TV. It wasn't about music. So even though it was a song contest, it wasn't really about that so much. So again, I'm not going to hold any of that against it. And I'm going to keep watching out to see whether or not I do get that musical finale. We'll see. We'll see. As for my take on the Ronnie reveal, I complain a lot about characters and references to things that are impenetrable for this as a season 2. This is one of those things where it was like the Ronnie is not even relevant to Revival Who. Like she's not really present throughout Revival Who. So on that level, it's like it almost works better than some of the other characters that have been brought back or story elements that have been brought back, because it has that extra layer of separation to the classic era where it's like, I don't know, it's not quite the same as when RTD is referencing RTD because it's got a real insider's vibe going on. But with this, it kind of feels like it puts a lot of people into homework mode more so than just the new fans. So it's not totally alienating them because it's alienating a lot of people. But it is still strange how much this series of seasons, this Disney series, is relying on returning bad guys when, I don't know, Russell T makes a big stink about not using returning bad guys and having all these fresh stories and everything. But, like, there are returning bad guys. They're just not returning from the Revival era. You're not bringing back Daleks and Cybermen and Weeping Angels, but you're bringing back Sutek, and you're bringing back the Toymaker, and you're bringing back the Ronnie. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that in season 15. It's just weird that we're doing it in season 2. But I guess, like I said, it is at least better that you're putting a bunch of people on their on the back foot with this reveal, because I'm certain that there's plenty of people of the classic era who have or the Revival era who have no idea who the Ronnie is, who are going to be Googling furiously this weekend to try to catch up. So I mean, in that regards, it is, I guess it's an equalizer. And it does, I guess, give you, if you're like if you're a long-term fan and you know a lot of stuff about the show, then I guess, yeah, it is more rewarding for you than for the average viewer. But that is the ultimate problem of this show, and not just this show. There's a lot of stuff like this. Things like the MCU are suffering from this right now. If there is so much homework you have to do just to enjoy it, it discourages new viewers from ever, even starting. And one of these days I will get off my soapbox about this.
But it is not this day.
But I don't think it'll be before this season's over. Because really it just doesn't work as a season 2, and they continue to drive that home. This Ronnie decision is not the worst offender. It's just the latest offender. Now, I do think it could be cool. I am more excited for the Ronnie than I was for Mrs. Flood, and I kind of like that Mrs. Flood is like this subservient creature to the Ronnie now. That's interesting. Although, I will say, I hated that Bi Generation. It looked bad. They put some money into the first Bi Generation. They clearly took their time with it. But this one, it did not look as good. It didn't look as good at all. And the dialogue around it felt stilted and just wooden. I don't know. It lacked the charm and the mystique and all of that the first one had. And it didn't feel like it had the drama that it thought it had. Um, I don't know. It just maybe if it looked better, it wouldn't have played so goofy. But it just felt kind of camp. Uh, I'm excited nonetheless. The Ronnie's a great villain, and I'm ready to see her cause some chaos. And to really warp reality, because that's what the Ronnie's is also really good at, is being the master of her domain and bending things to her will. So I'm interested to see what the reality war looks like, and what she has planned for May 24th. It's on my calendar just as it's on all of yours. I'm gonna be there with you guys. I cannot wait for it. I know we have one more episode after that one, but it's kind of weird how we've been building up to this one almost like it's the finale. But I'm excited for it. I can't wait to see it. And I don't even feel like I want to speculate anymore. We're so close to it now that all I want to do is just go to sleep because I've been up for hours and driving for 12 of them. And just dream of Doctor Who and just wake up 5 days from now and ready to watch the new one. Uh, but unfortunately, I have so much to do between now and then, including getting out the next Who SA from the USA, which will be out in just a couple of days. And it is an absolute banger. I'm so excited to share this one with you guys. I'm also so excited for how much love you guys are showing the last video. I know it doesn't look like it to anyone who's like a big time YouTuber. It looks like I've got, a pitiful amount of views, but I'm watching the numbers and they're going up, and I can see that people are interacting with it in a way they weren't before. So, I'm glad you guys like that one. I hope that I have some more videos in the near future that will continue to build on that goodwill, and you guys will keep coming around. I'm seeing some familiar faces coming around, and that gives me encouragement. And I'm gonna keep making these whether you guys show up or not, just because, like I said, I have so much to chat about. But it is exciting to see you guys around, and I really hope you guys stick around to see what I've got coming up later this week, and to see what happens on the 24th when we all come to see Wish World. Until then, I'm gonna sign off. Gonna give that cat the attention he deserves, and I will see you next time. Yes, catch him. Yes, you.